welcome to Ananke. I'm delighted to have with me today an esteemed panel of experts that I've been working very hard to get together. I'm truly grateful to all three of them, Nida Usman Chaudhary, Fawzia Yazdani, Ahmed Pansota, for taking the time out to be here with me today. In this panel, we're going to be examining how, despite the existence of legislation in Pakistan protecting and upholding women's rights, the development sector consistently shows substantive work illustrating that no, women in Pakistan remain the most downtrodden alongside children. Now, as a member of the arts, I long believed in cultural engagement, but again, there's no denying the evidence that the development sector presents, indicating that no, culture and art have also failed. So what do we do? Where do we begin to address the gaps through which women, marginalized communities, and children are falling through? Nida, Fawzia, Ahmed, thank you so much for being here with me today.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, this is a heavy topic, and I'd like all three of you to address it in your own way. I am firmly of the opinion, despite what the evidence says, Fawzia ji, I know you completely whoop me in this, but I still believe that the arts have some relevance in terms of engaging with civil society and addressing it. But we're going to start off with the lawyers here, which we have two. We have Ahmed and we have Nida. There is evidence of legislation that upholds women's rights in Pakistan. We only have to look at the anti-rape law, workplace harassment law, women's right to property law, anti-child marriage law. But where's the execution, guys? Why? Is it a governance issue where state failure comes to play? Is it a civil society thing where we keep saying that Pakistan is suffering from a lack of education, lack of awareness? If it is any of the above, as experts, when can we see better execution of the law? Floor is all yours.
Okay, may I?
Yes,
I'll take
please.
the liberty because I know both lawyers, they would come in from a very solid legal perspective.
That's right.
But I want to bring in the anthropological perspective.
Please
Number
do.
one, of course, we have to recognize that in Pakistan, the weakness in governance, the rule of law, it does not exist. So our biggest challenge is governance, rule of law that affects implementation. That's a very simple, non-chaotic statement. But what the issue is, no matter how good a legislation is, it does not operate in a social vacuum. So
Right.
much that through women in development to gender and development and all the struggles of civil society in Pakistan, we have these beautiful laws and policies and frameworks, but we see lesser of the implementation because we've not worked on social norms, societal normative frameworks, especially language, language, arts, and culture, as you're saying, even them, to change the mindset or thinking of the people into a progressive way. The internalized misogyny is much higher a problem than patriarchy, and that affects any good legislation because it's the women that kind of victim blame. That's one. Number two, in that, what I feel hasn't happened is that we've not been able to come up with an linguistically alternate or an very coherent unpacking of the term feminism. So what has happened is that suddenly, whenever the word feminism comes, nobody thinks about it, that it's about men and women having equal rights. It, in Pakistani context, broadly, even as if social media is any indicator to that effect, it is synonymized with obscenity. It is synonymized with women want to have open sex. It is synonymized with that we want to get away with the family culture and we want to ruin it. And then religious misinterpretations, they come in. And altogether, what happens? You have law enforcement agencies who think that still violence against women or anything to do with women's access to legal remedies is a family matter. Courts think the same. We've had gender GBV courts for long, but where's the case law? I mean, one harassment case, which I'm sure Ahmed would talk about it, of Misha Shafi, is still to be decided. So suddenly, those of us who want to even play a role or talk about it, they're kind of, I should keep quiet. I should keep quiet. And then I'm sick of this, again, it's synonymization with honor. that
Yeah.
be it an killing, be it a family honor or whatever. So this burden of honor, women in Asia, South Asia, and even Middle East and Arab states, they're carrying it on their head. I think it's enough. So we need to see that how good policies, how legislation and their implementation can take that burden away from women. So I'll stop there.
Right. Lawyers, over to you.
So I will just carry forward the thought because I am not, only here in my capacity as a lawyer, but also in my experience in the field of arts. So I have, like, I think I somewhere bridge both the worlds that we are, here
You
trying to
do?
connect.
Yes.
And because of that, there's one issue that I wanted to highlight when Fawzia ji was talking about all the issues that she highlighted, and I completely second those. But I think another big issue is that just recently, a week ago, I was giving a training to people supposedly from the development sector, from who are actually empowered people working in different fields, including in the police, including in the social sector, and other fields, even the NGO sector. And I was supposed to give them training on the workplace harassment law and the inheritance laws. And when initially, at the very beginning, I asked them if they knew about these two legislations, they had no idea. And that information gap, that even people from within these empowered circles, or who are actually working in the field, I mean, I would say that they were obviously not from a place like Lahore. These trainings were for people working in more remote areas, but even then, if this is the state of understanding, and if this is the state of awareness of what laws and protection mechanisms are out there and what forums are out there, even the ones that have been designed that are more conducive for women to access, such as the Ombudsperson Office for workplace harassment, I think that level of awareness has just not, I think that's where one of the biggest implementation gaps is, that we have not been able to capture the imagination of the wider public at large in terms of educating them as to what these forums are. So the stigma of going to a court is not there. These are forums where, which are quasi judicial. So all of those sort of mental barriers that hold women or marginalized communities back from accessing these forums, I think one, there's a big information gap over there. We still need to work on the awareness. But also, I think we do also need to work on the success stories and the few cases that have come about which are positive. And very recently, even the judges and the progressive judgments that have come out from even federal Shariat court, particularly the Fawzia Jalal case, where they very clearly, the federal Shariat court said that any practice, whatever name you call it parchi, you call it chadar, you call it whatever, if that ends up denying a woman her right to inheritance, then it is un-Islamic. So I
Mhm.
think there is a lot of progressive development happening now, like in more recent years, in more recent times, even within the courts and these forums. But unfortunately, the awareness is still not within our public imagination. And I think that's where the arts has a role to play. And I'll stop here as far as this comment is concerned.
Thank you, Nida. Ahmed, over to you.
Well, I've heard, the anthropological side and what Nida said, and completely agree with that. But you see, my point comes purely from a practical point of view. And the legislations that you just mentioned, the Anti-Rape Act, then the Ombudsman Law, which is the harassment law, I was luckily part of the committee which revamped it. And then in the anti-rape case, I was actually the one who was part of the drafting team. So the first and the foremost problem in Pakistan is that we get overwhelmed by legislations which are in place in different parts of the world. So when you implement something in Pakistan, it must resonate with your local needs. It must resonate with the local problems and the offenses which take place in Pakistan. So firstly, this legislation, any legislation in Pakistan, that's true for the civil legislation. And then, of course, these two legislations that I've just mentioned, they don't exactly resonate with what's happening in Pakistan. Then comes the practical part where the implementation comes in. Now, I am quite regularly appearing before FOSPA, and that's probably one of the only trial proceedings that I conduct myself. And I have very regularly been appearing. And in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, I've seen very, very, big cases happening right in front of my eyes. But the courts in Pakistan had to interpret the law so as to sort of give it a wider ambit, so as to expand the jurisdiction. Until 2022, until the Nadia Has judgment had come out, the Ombudsman office was merely implementing harassment with a sexual connotation. And we understand that harassment does not only come with a sexual connotation, it comes with the difference of power, with a power imbalance. Then, of course, many other factors contribute. And it was only after that judgment that the legislature had to amend that. It should have been the other way around. You see, people elected in this country or people sitting in the parliament are the true representatives of the people, supposedly. So if they are sitting there, they are the ones who should firstly be coming up with all of these legislations, and then these legislations should be interpreted by the courts. But in this country, it's the other way around. That's also very, very problematic. Then the awareness part, which Nida pointed out, I think she's dot on the point, because when we drafted the changes to this law, the initial changes, which is the Punjab law, there was nobody in Punjab that I had come across, especially females, who knew about this law. Even my clients who were very well educated, I was conducting a case. The lady was an additional secretary and she won a case against the ambassador of Pakistan in some country posted. So even she was not aware of that law. So the next important factor, which I think must come into play, is that people must be, and especially females, and by the way, this law does not only apply to females as well, it also applies to males. So, the dissemination of information of that legislation is very, very important. So, all of these factors coupled together, that's the more problematic area. Then these laws are being implemented by the ombudspersons. Once again, they're exceptional people who are very well intentioned. But yes, the legal part is missing, because when you're deciding a case, the most important factor becomes the evidence, how that evidence is to be appreciated, how that resonates with the whole working of that case. Now, majority of the cases before FOSPA and other forums, they are dismissed because of lack of evidence, when the law itself says that the threshold of evidence is very different from civil and criminal proceedings. So these are small little factors which I've just pointed out, which is why females are finding it slightly, I would say, quite difficult to get justice when they come up with any allegation against, any person in Pakistan. And while, speaking, Fawzia had mentioned about the Misha Shafi case, that's exactly what had happened in that case. I mean, even one of the strongest ladies in the country, she could not establish that. Why? Because the evidence threshold is so difficult to, establish in this court system, that eventually she's obviously left remedies. Unless there is evidence of, let's say, a text message or some voice note or something of that sort, it is very, very difficult for a forum or for a judge to convict somebody under this law.
So
Mehr,
now
I just
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Number one, I totally want to second what Amit said. These international, usually legislations and policies in Pakistan are seen, they are this national response to international commitments. So that does not mean that once you have them, they would automatically start working. And then what Nida says comes in, advocacy and awareness raising, but to what effect? To let them know that this law exists, but where is the social construct around? Where is the vitamin C required, vitamin change required for women to enable them to do it? And where has ever any advocacy by the government, by the judicial justice sector stakeholders or donors have worked to, to say that these are crimes of power, not passion?
Yeah.
It's been like years, over 10, 15 years that we've been working on it. So that's also very
important. Just one little example.
No, please.
There was this case that I was doing, and I was able to win that case. This was this additional secretary who had filed a case against the ambassador in Pakistan. The case was decided in her favor. But when that lady was being cross-examined, I was sitting next to her as her counsel. She was being cross-examined by 22 lawyers.
Yeah.
Now, how will you address that situation? Every lawyer had a reason to just sit there, and they were doing nothing but simply harassing her. And I can state that with authority. They were doing that. But she had to go through, once again, 22 lawyers and then 16 different dates of hearings. And the kind of questions were, what is going around in your head? When you look at me, what do you think about me? These sort of questions. So now, where does legislation cater for this? This is where the judicial command comes in. This is where the judge who's hearing that case, and I'm not pointing out at any particular judge, I'm just saying judge, any person sitting in that capacity, he or she has to take charge and say, no, you can't cross-examine like that. There is a method to this madness, which is prescribed under the Evidence Act or the Kanun-e-Shahadat order and all of that. So this is where the real problem comes in. And that lady didn't want to pursue that case from there onwards. And then I had to convince her, no, we have got a good case. So this is the practical side or the practical problem that she was facing, and many others are facing.
Meher, also, I think the agency also, women's agency is still something that needs to be fought out on the streets. And we still, every year on Aurat March, need to explain to people why women are autonomous beings and why, they should not be, viewed from the lens of their relationship to a man. So having the power and the right to make their own decisions, and then from a very young age, when they are children, the discrimination in terms of whether she would go to the same level of schooling, whether she will have access to the same opportunities, and I think most importantly, whether she'll have access to her economic rights, which will strengthen her to a point where if her rights, any other rights are violated, she has the resources to go and access the forums. Because all of this takes courage. It obviously, women don't necessarily find that support from their families. In fact, they're being silenced, as Ms. Fauzi also highlighted. And on top of that, they don't even have any support. So they're dependent on either the parents or the husband or the brothers. So, where is the financial independence for them to be able to take these decisions?
I think what I'm hearing from all three of you is that the mechanisms are in place, but then we have the international element of it, and contextualizing it means raising awareness and bringing about sensitivity. Now, I understand, Fawzia ji, from the development sector, when you come out with these reports, the data does not lie at all, and it paints a very, very ugly reality, which we may not be willing to accept. And of course, on the international levels, they may, you may want to counter it by saying that your indicators are different to our indicators. There's a contextualization problem that, as Emmett had pointed out. Does this then come down to cultural engagement? And by cultural engagement, I'm talking in terms of the arts, I'm talking in terms of campaigns, I'm talking in terms of dramas, I'm talking literature in different languages. I'm talking, and we've seen that happen. We've seen that Kashyap Foundation has tried to do that. Simor has come out with so many things. WAF has certainly done that with their songs and protests. And I mean, you're familiar with my work. I've tried to do that in my own way as well. But it just doesn't seem to be working, because we're now sitting here and all I can think of is where do we go from here? It's the same things that are being repeated over and over again. Where are the gaps? There's a clear disjoint between what all of us, all four of us, are saying here. What do you think needs to change, structurally speaking?
So number one, I would say, when you say that data doesn't lie, I mean, I wish I could quote Shakira here. What doesn't lie? Because it's almost
That's the arts. That's the arts. That is the arts.
So only that part does not lie. Data does lie. Data, you see, data needs to be standardized. Data needs to be current. Data needs to be representative. The problem in Pakistan, what we have when it comes to capturing violence against women, is that we do not have any structured national data set. Pakistan Demography and Health Survey is the only one that has one small component that captures violence against women to child marriages. In the Pakistan maternal mortality report, there you captured that, those women who are either abused when they are pregnant or they die because of that, because of violence during their pregnancy, that covers it. PDHS for Pakistan has not happened since 2018. So thank you very much for the data here, right? Pakistan Demography did repeat. It is supposed to be, it's a repetition after 2 years. That's a globally accepted data set. So since 2017-18 was the last one. Demography survey happened in 2020. After census, we've not anything. So at the moment, we do not have any information. What is the level of violence against women in Pakistan, or child marriage, or CBV, or whatever, how many women justify it or not? That's point number one. I'll give you an example. National Commission for Child Rights. My work on child marriage and GBV is very close. I've been really following it up with them. The violence against the sexual violence or harassment and other violence against children are not even covered or captured anywhere. National Commission for Rights of Child has come out with their annual report day before yesterday, and you know what they have reported on 18 cases in 2024 of child marriages in first 6 months. Where did you get the data? Media reported. If an oversight organization is going to get media reported figure, we are done with data there. So that's number one. Number two, who invests into data? Either governments invest into data or international organization to have the international commitments take a very structured evidence-based shape into a national response, push governments to do it. It's not sexy enough for development organization as well to generate data because it's not a low-hanging fruit. It takes time, it needs more investment, and it needs them to push governments, national governments harder. That let's make the change. So unless we do not have that data, so what are we basing our advocacy campaigns, our awareness raising campaigns, or our trainings? What are we basing that on? When we say that, you know, this needs to be changed, for example, the case in point, child marriage law, we do not have a child marriage law in Pakistan. How do we tell people this many girls die during pregnancy? 50, as per 8 years old data, 58% of women justify being beaten by husband. They do not report it. Thank you very much. So there lies your, case in point of the data. When it comes to entertainment and culture, you see, Kashaf and others who have done, or Simor, where they've done this work, they have invested very heavily themselves into it. When have you seen any government or development partner partnered with a kind of, a channel, X channel, that let us future-proof you, your scripts. Let us give you few pointers that you can integrate that would create the progressive social change, that will give linguistic, anecdotes that would bring in that it's all right, do not shame women. So that has not been done because that's a long term. And so whoever comes here comes for 2 years. They want to invest in a 3-year cycle. So it doesn't happen. And government of Pakistan, I mean, I'm sorry, I would name them. National Commission on Status of Women has been the weakest for last few years. I rest my case.
Ahmed, you've been associated with PEMRA. So what are your thoughts on this? Since the electronic media is widely consumed and not many people in Pakistan have access to the internet, what is your take on this? What do we do? How do we counter it? Especially if the state is, as Fawzia ji said, if the state is to partner or work with us, how do we even go about it?
I think I will borrow the same reasoning that I had used for the legislation, like inappropriate and not complete legislations in Pakistan. The arts or the drama side or any other form of expression on national TV or let's say any private channel is not representative of what is happening in Pakistan. I mean, I was the chairman council of complaints and I was responsible for sort of monitoring all the on-air data. So I used to get all of these complaints. You pick up any play in Pakistan and just question yourself, is that the problem that women are facing in Pakistan? And the answer in 60 to 70% of the cases would be no, that is absolutely not the case. Just to make it sellable, they come up with the most absurd of topics. And these topics where they cannot be related to reality in any way whatsoever. So then you expect them to have a positive impact on the development side of, let's say, legislation or on the females or any other aspect. So I think my first concern is that we need to change the script of these plays, these movies and everything. Secondly, once we are able to do that, then these things have to be shown at prime time. Like, there are very few channels that are operating which have the capacity to sort of play it at a time when they can be generally viewed. I mean, like I have serious reservations with the topics which are being discussed in the morning shows. I mean, like I can, I'm all ready to be criticized for that. But you just switch on any morning show. Do you think that the only topic of concern in Pakistan is that who is getting married? Like I've seen people getting married thrice, same people getting married to the same girl thrice in 3 different episodes. Is that the problem that Pakistani women are facing in Pakistan? The answer is no. The problems are harassment. The problem is child marriages. The problem is
I agree.
other problems highlighted by Nida and Fawzia. These are the problems, but we do not have the cheek to even raise these problems, let alone discuss them in any of these, platforms that at least I have reviewed. I'm not saying all of them, but 60%
Of
of them.
course.
So,
Of course. Nida, since you're associated with the arts, now I think I want to ask you this, that what Emmett is saying, I mean, there are numerous examples. The most commercial fiction that we see in Pakistan, John Grisham, right, where he wrote about legal cases. And now, recently, about 2 years ago, I worked with another author, Christy Lefteri, who had written about how nannies from Sri Lanka and the Philippines were being brought to Cyprus and they were being killed. And she fictionalized it, right? Do you think this is something that the arts should do? They should work with the state, with lawyers, with development experts, and fictionalize these things in the form of literature, in the form of drama. Do you think that will help?
So I think one other issue that we're missing and overlooking is the fact that every time our industry tries to experiment with something which is out of the box, they do face a lot of bans, they do face censure, they do face, I mean, so when we're talking about government taking initiative on these actions, and then on the other hand, you have excellent works because of right-wing pressure or other pressures being banned. And we have Sarmat Khusart's productions, for that matter, as an example of what happens when you dare to step out of the, usual stuff that Pansota Saab has been mentioning. What does that leave the showbiz industry with? So just, I mean, I'm being the devil's advocate here, but honestly, the policies, we can't even show blood as blood on our screens. It has to be blurred, or it has to be, the color has to be shifted to gray. So I mean, the policies and the state's own paranoia with what we are showing on screens, and the issue with the expression being stifled, is something that we also need to come to terms with. Despite that, I think the Punjab government recently held that theatre play called Dharti Ma, where they were trying to create awareness about climate change, and I think that was a wonderful initiative. Even my own exhibition on the 100 Years of Women in Law, I think, received much more public engagement, and it had a lot more impact, with me getting invited to other cities as far as Multan to come and showcase that, because whatever I was writing in the studies, nobody was reading. So all that data or whatever, and information that I was putting out there also made no sense, because people are not reading enough. So in that situation, I think
That's a
arts,
sore point with me,
tourism,
Nida. Don't make
and
me
all of
cry
that.
now.
No, but you see, that's where the arts comes in, because there people do come for entertainment. But if you have a message attached to it, I think it is well taken. And at least I'm hopeful, because I do see young lawyers now questioning why is the salary not mentioned in the job advert, for example. And that has been because of years of advocacy and awareness. Similarly, in the Nikah Namas, the awareness campaign that won prizes, international prizes as well, which I think the center in UCL did. I think it's fantastic how these creative ways of creating awareness, message in a mithai box campaign, and all of that is, and even I think fashion designers are collaborating with
They are.
institutions led by young lawyers and young professionals who are trying to engage with the audience in very meaningful ways. And I think that definitely has more impact than what we've been doing in the past. So I'm going to change my strategy for sure.
I'd be more than happy to work with you, Nida. Guys, we're down to our last 5 minutes. So anything I've missed out, anything you'd like to add? Emmett, let's start off with you.
yes,
Go for it.
I think just one point, because since you had asked about Pembra, I think there is another aspect that people love to do in this country, is to define obscenity. People are obsessed with defining obscenity in Pakistan. And
Yes,
I also got the
it's
I
tea
also
time
got the chance to do
conversation.
that. In fact, I'll share my judgment with you, where I also attempted to
Please
do
do.
that. And I ended up writing that there is absolutely no way you can define obscenity. What
Right.
appears obscene to me cannot say, it can be completely different for you.
Subjective, yeah.
And it's very subjective, exactly. And I think secondly, once again, this arts and culture thing, I completely agree with Nida. People who've gone against the grain have faced the music, but it's a gradual step. You have to start doing it in have to take baby steps, and eventually take people where there where they want to. One example is the Saudi Arabian, I think, cinema, Saudi Arabian TV, which has sort of progressed in the last 5 or 6 years. I was surprised to see things that they were showing, but it's a gradual step, I think. But what they're showing at the moment is certainly not helping the cause of women, and I think it's actually, in fact, counterproductive. So they seriously need to change that policy.
Well, we're hoping that you will take the lead, Ahmed. We'll follow you. Fawzia ji, we're down to the last 4 minutes. Over to you.
Yes, I would second what Ahmed and Nira has said. I think that's very, very important. We need to work more in a structured way towards the change. And I think social normative frameworks are very, very important. We should use vernacular press, vernacular language, make it sound more easier. I would not quote example of Saudi Arabia, but I would definitely quote example of Iran, Lebanon, and Egypt, where they have made better, entertainment material and integrated these subjects into it. So I think that's very important. And using digital spaces for progressive content. TikTok. Let's go on there.
TikTok. Yep. TikTok is where we all need to be. G. Ahmed, very quickly.
No. I was just a passing comment. I'm also on TikTok. So it's just a passing
Well,
comment.
look, this is why I said it, Ahmed. We are going to follow you. Nida, over to you.
No, just I think another brilliant example of how Aurat March has captured the people through the art. And I think the movement has really, whether people have hated on it, but they have given through their art a lot of food for thought. And I think over the years, there's been a lot more acceptability. I mean, this year's march had police, women guarding the march from both sides. So it shows that, through art, you can reach out and you can eventually convince and turn the tables. And of course, I'm not saying that the threats have ended, but they've definitely developed, and they've definitely, we've moved on from the moment that the first backlash came to the march, and now towards greater sort of, at least at the state level. So, there is gradual change happening, and it will happen through the art. That's what I believe.
Thank
One
you
little thing that I want to
Yes,
add.
go for it.
I think
Go for it.
one of the strongest forums that you can use is basically the medium of humor. And unfortunately, the information minister in Punjab, she's a good friend. I have all the respect for her, but she's busy, going and raiding these plays in Punjab and in different parts of Lahore instead of regulating them. You watch these plays anywhere in the world, be it Lido, any other cinema in the world, they are generally not for kids or people like of age 16 or 17. They're basically meant for adults, and humor is supposed to be like that. So you regulate humor, and through humor, I think you can come up with the strongest of words. As the clown comes up with the strongest statement in a circus, but that is what is the most effective statement.
And I've been a good clown, you see, I've been a good clown using humor and Punjabi language. I've done the most.
I totally agree.
Pakistani vendor meme game is the world.
Pakistani meme game. I myself, I'm a stand-up comedian. I did Aurat Nak, and I've seen the change that came about every time I did a show.
I'm looking at him. Ahmed, we're all available to humor and help Asma.
Ahmed's lucky. We're out of time. Thank you so much, everyone. That was a brilliant session. And Ahmed has had the last laugh. Thank you so much for joining. Nida, Fawzia ji, Ahmed, truly grateful to you. Thank you. Take care. Good night.
My pleasure. Thank you.